Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, my name is Monica. I am your host, and this is the place where we take real life stories, real headlines, and real life chaos and actually slow them down long enough for it to make sense to the entire world. Because today's episode, this one starts off like your typical true crime breakdown and then quickly turns into something that feels a little too close to home. Today, we are talking about a grandmother who was arrested at gunpoint because facial recognition technology said that she looked like somebody else. Not because of evidence, not because of a witness, but because of an algorithm. And then we're getting into a case that sat unsolved for the last 15 years. A young realtor murdered during an open house in broad daylight. And that one, it's a reminder that some cases don't go away, even when it feels like they have. Then, in the second half of this episode, we are shifting into something honestly unsettling and a little more than I expected. A documentary that breaks down how plastics and chemicals inside of them may be affecting our hormones, our fertility, and even our future generations. Like, not to be dramatic, but it's one of those you can't unlearn this situations. And of course, we're ending with a mom moment because I'm over here questioning, my life choices and what's going on in my kitchen. My toddler has entered into the terrible twos a little earlier than scheduled. He is throwing daily tantrums, and we may or may not have had an unsolved Apple TV purchase case happening in my house. So, yes, a little bit of everything today. So, let's get into it. Let me set the scene for you. You're at home, you're babysitting your grandkids. Normal day, nothing suspicious, nothing dramatic. And then suddenly, the US Marshal shows up and arrests you at gunpoint. Not because of something you did, but because a computer said that you look like someone who did do that thing. So, this is exactly what happened to a 50-year-old grandmother, Angela Lips. According to WOWT, she was accused of being involved in bank fraud case out of North Dakota, despite the fact that she had never even been there. Curious, right? Let's just pause it right there. Never even been there. How did this even happen? So, police were investigating a series of fraud cases when someone was using a fake military ID to withdraw money. They pulled surveillance footage, ran it through facial recognition software, and then the system said, "Oh, this is your person." Except it wasn't. It flagged Angela. And instead of that being treated like a lead, it was treated like a conclusion, basically. So investigators even went a step further, compared her driver's license, looked at her social media, and basically said, yeah, that is her. Case closed, except it wasn't. What happened next is actually insane, you guys. So she was arrested at gunpoint in July of 2025, taken from her home, booked into jail, and then she sat there for 4 months in a Tennessee jail without bail, waiting to even be sent to North Dakota to defend herself. 4 months, you guys. Imagine your grandma like being in jail for 4 months for something she didn't do. Like, I don't know. That's absolutely nuts. Before she even got a chance to say, hi, I literally wasn't even there. And when she finally got in front of the right people and hired an attorney, her lawyer pulled bank records, basic simple evidence, and those records proved that she was in Tennessee the entire time, not in North Dakota, not committing fraud, just, living her best grandma life. And just like that, the charges were dropped. The charges charges were dismissed on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, I guess, right? But here's the part that really gets me. So after months in jail, she lost her home, she lost her car, she lost her dog, she missed holidays with her family. And when it was all over, no help getting home, no real compensation, just like, sorry, our bad. She literally had to rely on donations and outside help to like rebuild her life. So let's talk about this because this isn't just one story. This is what happens when we start trusting technology more than like actual evidence. Facial recognition doesn't prove that she did it. It suggested she might have done it and might turned into an arrest. It turned into jail time and it completely like destroyed 4 months of her life. Well, probably beyond that because she lost all those things. So, because the system said, close enough, I'm sorry, but close enough should never have been enough when you're talking about somebody's freedom. So, yeah. That's our first story for today. Now, let's shift gears into a case that feels very different, but hits just as hard because this one is also about time and what happens when justice takes 15 years. So back in 2011, Ashley Okland was a 27-year-old realtor in West Des Moines, Iowa. She was hosting an open house middle of the day, normal showing, like nothing weird, nothing out of the ordinary, the kind of situation that just feels routine. It feels safe, even. Okay. And then something went very, very wrong. Ashley was found inside the home, shot twice, and later died from her injuries. And then nothing. No immediate arrest, no clear suspect, just a crime scene that left investigators and honestly the entire community completely shaken because this wasn't hidden. This wasn't isolated. This happened in a place where people walk in and out freely, an open house. Like the least likely of crime scenes, I guess, at if you really think about it, like that'd be just bizarre because you're literally inviting people into the crime scene. But anyway, so years of questions go by. Investigators didn't just drop the case, they worked it. They worked on it really hard. We're talking about hundreds of interviews, hundreds of leads, years of revisiting evidence, and still nothing. No answers, no justice for over a decade. And at some point, families start to lose hope because cold cases have a way of feeling pretty permanent, and that is hard. That can be that is hard. So then 15 years later, everything changes. According to ABC7 Chicago, a woman named Kristen Ramsey was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. 15 years later, you guys. And here's where it gets even more unsettling. At the time of the murder, she worked for a company connected to the property where Ashley was killed. Let that sink in for a second. Someone within proximity to the environment, someone who, at least on paper, would not immediately raise alarms. But here's what we don't know, and this is important. Authorities have not said what led to the arrest, what evidence broke the case open, or even what the motive was, which I know is frustrating, but it's also intentional because when a case finally moves forward after this long, they protect that information for the trial. Obviously, because they don't want like all of the public to know every single little detail because they don't want to, sway the jury, whatever. So what do we know? Ashley's case haunted the community. It changed how realtors approach open houses. 15 years later, and it stayed in the minds of investigators for years. And when the arrest was announced, her family said something that really stuck with me. They had started to lose hope that answers would ever come. And honestly, that's the reality of cold cases because, sometimes they just don't get solved. But sometimes we need to just wait because they eventually will get solved and justice sometimes just takes time. There's really no happy medium, is there? It's either like it moves way too fast and they get it wrong, or it moves way too slow until they get it right. Big picture here, a woman arrested too quickly because of technology, and a case that took years to build very carefully. One was rushed, one was painstakingly slow, and somehow both raised the same question. What does justice actually look like? Because getting it wrong is devastating, but taking too long, that has its own cost too. So there's more to come. I mean, I am really hoping to update you guys on this. So I'm going to try and circle back to this one because I need to give you some more information, especially if we do a deep dive on who Ashley was and why she was killed. So stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back. We are changing it up a little bit today. I know I typically will do another true crime segment after our current event section, but today I want to talk about the Netflix documentary, The Plastic Detox, because this is something really important to me and that I'm interested in. And I think the documentary was very informative and I highly suggest you watch it. So it's called, again, The Plastic Detox, and you can stream this on Netflix. I thought I was going to learn a few things, maybe feel a little guilty about my water bottles, like plastic water bottles, which I do not use anymore. But no, this documentary actually had everything you touch that might be the problem. So I have learned a lot and I haven't been the same since. Let me just break this down for you and let's just start here. The bigger concern. The documentary follows scientist Shauna Swan, who has spent decades studying fertility. And her main point is simple, but kind of also terrifying. So fertility is declining. Sperm counts are dropping, and she believes the major reason for this is our environment, specifically plastics and the chemicals inside of them, which I don't know about you, but for my generation, it does seem to be a trend that I have noticed, especially with fertility issues. I myself had issues with fertility, and I think this trend is so new and it needs to be studied more. And the correlation between plastics and chemicals inside of those plastics linked to fertility is becoming very evident, as well as, everything that's surrounding it. I mean, it's everywhere. So let's just keep going here. And before you're like, okay, so like, how bad is it? I will just say this. They make it very clear that microplastics are not just out there. They are in your food, they are in your water, they're in your clothes, your children's toys, they're in your kitchen, and they are in your bloodstream. Like, we are not avoiding this. There is no way to avoid this. They're everywhere. We are living in it. So, a little backstory, because obviously this research didn't happen overnight. So let's just learn about plastics for a second. Plastics became popular in the mid 1900s, the century I am from. They were cheap, they were durable, they were convenient, and everyone was like, amazing, you solved everything. Except we didn't realize that plastics weren't just materials. They were made with chemicals like phthalates and BPA that don't stay contained. Essentially, they leak, especially when heated, when scratched, or when used over time. So every time you're microwaving leftovers in plastic, yeah, that's just not reheating your pasta. You are activating the microplastics within that container that you essentially do eat. It kind of just makes me think of how many times I have used like a plastic fork utensil on some hot food that I had recently heated up, and part of the fork melted in my food. Yeah. So that's happened before, and I'm sure if it's happened to me, it's happened to many other people before. Plastic utensils are just I'm done with those after watching this documentary. I will use my fingers if I have to. So let's talk about the real problem that this is causing, and it is hormonal. So phthalates are what we call endocrine disruptors, which is basically just a fancy way of saying that they mess with your hormones. And your hormones control your fertility, they control your weight, your development, your mood, and literally everything important. Hormones, they control everything, you guys. So when those signals get disrupted, your body doesn't function in the way it's supposed to. The study that made everyone go, wait, what? So, Shauna Swan, she did research measuring phthalates in pregnant women, then followed their babies. And what they found, especially in baby boys, was extremely concerning. Higher exposure led to something called phthalate syndrome and something called a shorter anogenital distance. And yes, we are going to say it plainly. What this is the measurement which is linked to reproductive health. And the shorter this distance, it has been associated with fertility issues, smaller genital development, undescended testicles, and basically shorter penises. So all of this traced back to chemical exposure. So when people say this is affecting male development, they're not being dramatic. They're referencing actual data, and it doesn't stop there. This part I had to pause for a second because the effects don't just impact one person. If a pregnant woman is exposed to these chemicals, it can affect not only her baby, it can affect her baby's reproductive cells in the future, meaning it can be carried on for 3 generations. So this isn't just exposure. This is becoming inheritance of a man-made chemical. This is a problem. This is a huge, huge problem, and it's going to take century plus probably to heal ourselves from this. And where are these chemicals again? Yes, that's right, they're everywhere. The documentary makes this painfully clear, and I'm not trying to scare you, I'm really not. And again, I typically do true crime. This documentary was more terrifying than anything, and I know I cover some dark stuff on here, but microplastics and chemicals are being found everywhere. They're even being found in placentas, in breast milk, which means exposure starts immediately before you even take your first breath. And that is very sad and very concerning. Something needs to be done about this. Also, your skin is not just there to make you look pretty. Your skin is your biggest organ. Your skin absorbs over 60% of what you put on it. So, all of those lotions, those perfumes, hair products, cleaning sprays, they contain synthetic chemicals. And if they contain the wrong synthetic chemicals, your body is taking that in. There was also a wild correlation I did not expect to hear. They found that girls who were exposed earlier to certain chemicals, especially through beauty products in their hair, especially hair treatments and stuff, they started puberty much earlier. And early puberty is also linked to a higher risk in breast cancer later in life. So again, it's not just one thing. It's just so many layers and layers of different things. And then after hearing that, it just it made me think back just to all of the things that I tried on my scalp for alopecia maintenance and regrowing my hair back. And I have so many regrets in a lot of things that I did. And it almost makes me wonder if maybe one of these chemicals could be ramping up my alopecia. Who really knows? Again, not too much research on it, but all right. Yeah. So I don't know. The whole situation just sounds completely overwhelming. But is there any good news? Yes. Yes, there is. And this is where the documentary actually gets a tiny bit hopeful. So Shauna, she followed couples who were changing their environment. These were 6 couples who wanted to get pregnant and were just having issues getting pregnant. So they had been trying from anywhere from like 2 to 10 years and nothing was wrong, like not their genetics, like nothing like that. And they weren't going to do like some kind of extreme treatment. But what she thought to do was to just change their environment, just what they were exposed to daily. They switched away from plastics, they cleaned up their personal care products, they reduced chemical exposure, and then guess what happened? Their BPA and phthalate levels dropped significantly. And then some things started changing. So 5 of the 6 men improved their sperm concentration. I think it was all of the participants actually lost weight because, again, these can disrupt your hormones that control weight gain. And then they all eventually, after the experiment, left feeling better overall. And most of them, I think all of them did, actually continued just making those daily changes in their lives to step away from the phthalates. And then this is the part that really stood out. 3 of the couples conceived naturally within a short time of the experiment concluding. Not everyone, but enough to make you go, okay, so this matters. There was significant data, and it's a pretty simple approach to combating endocrine disruptors that are linked to, issues with fertility. So it takes about 70 days to produce new sperm. So when we say lifestyle changes can impact fertility, they mean relatively quickly, you guys. So what did they actually recommend without making you completely panic? Because I've been panicking a little ever since watching this documentary. I like this part because it wasn't like too unrealistic and it was just mindful. Mindful is a good word to use. So in your kitchen, stop microwaving plastic. Use glass or stainless steel, anything in your kitchen. Limit canned foods and avoid nonstick pans when possible. For your personal care products, please be careful with fragrance, anything that has fragrance on it, major phthalate source right there. Like fragrance is another word for phthalate. And then avoid parabens and harsh chemicals. Basically, I know a lot of us, especially with our cleaning supplies, that can be hard to do, but yeah. And then daily habits. Don't leave plastic bottles in hot cars. That is a huge no-no. Wash your hands after you touch receipts. Receipts was the other one that stood out to me. Don't touch receipts. There's something with the paper on there. Do not just quit receipts, digital everything. And then clean dust regularly. And then choose organic when you can. It's not about perfection. It's just about reducing your exposure because, again, it is everywhere. There's no way for us to be completely free of these chemicals that have been introduced into our environment. So now let's talk about the part that made me side eye everything. Recycling. They basically say it is not the solution that we think it is. I used to be a hardcore recycler, especially when it comes to plastics, but I guess you'll just have to watch it. There's another documentary that I really liked about learning about recycling, but we are being very misled. And because of that, recycling in a nutshell plastic really isn't actually being recycled. It can't be reused safely. So we've been told, just recycle it, you're fine. And meanwhile, we're still surrounded by all of it. And it's literally just being moved around to a different location. committees near companies and plastics have also created, a much bigger issue. The documentary follows a group in a community in Louisiana near a company called Formosa Plastics. They have been speaking out for years about the pollution and the health issues and the increased illness that it has caused to the members of that community, and they're still fighting to be heard. Meanwhile, look at the global difference. The European Union has banned over 1,000 chemicals from personal care products, and in the US, we have about nine. Nine, you guys, that have been banned. So while we're over here trying to read labels and switch products, there are entire systems elsewhere that are already limiting exposure at a much higher level than the United States is, which really infuriates me. But it's a work in progress. I'm hoping we'll get there. I think the more people know, the more power we'll have. So, closing reflections, let's just bring it back down for a second. This documentary didn't make me feel helpless, but it did make me feel very aware, because the truth is, we're not going to eliminate plastics overnight. That's not realistic, but we can make better choices, reduce what we can, pay attention to what we're using daily, and all of this will add up. And if something as simple as changing your environment can impact your health, your fertility, and even future generations, that's worth paying attention to. All right, guys, welcome back. I know that last segment was a lot, and let's just bring this home, because while I've been over here talking about wrongful arrests and endocrine disruptors, my actual day-to-day reality is a toddler who has decided peace is no longer an option. Welcome to the Terrible Twos Early Access Edition. My son is not even 2 yet, not even close. He's a year and a half. Actually, he's not even a year and a half. He's still got like 9 more days. And somehow we are already here. The tantrums. They are immediate, they are explosive, they are completely unpredictable, and they are over things that make absolutely no sense. Like giving him the snack he asked for, opening something too fast, or honestly just exiting near him at the wrong time. And it's not just like a quick cry. No, no, no. This is like a full-on performance. We are on the floor. We are arching our backs. We are thrashing our bodies. We are screaming like I've personally ruined his entire life. And I'm just standing here like, sir, you asked me for the banana. Like, why are we losing our minds right now? The Apple TV situation. I know this is like the longest saga of my life, and it has now become a household investigation. We actually have introduced Apple TV into our lives. I was not aware of this. In hindsight, this may have been a mistake, but somehow the purchase was made. And we actually currently have an active investigation going on in our household. I have two suspects, my toddler, Maddox, or his father. And honestly, both have equal levels of confidence. And I don't know who's going to take accountability for this one. Maddox has no concept of money, but does like to press buttons like it's his full-time job and moves through screens at an alarming speed. His dad absolutely does know what he's doing, but also may have the energy of, I'm just clicking through this real quick, or possibly there was something on there he wanted to watch. So now I'm sitting here like, did my toddler accidentally subscribe us to something? Or did the grown man just hit confirm and we're just going to put it on the baby anyway? I don't really know. The truth, we may never know. Or, you know, maybe his dad did do it. Jameson probably bought it, and I'm pretty sure he mentioned something about it, but sometimes my brain, it listens, but it just doesn't fully comprehend everything because there's so much happening at the same time. Meanwhile, through the Apple TV situation, I am over here healing. It's been over 2 weeks. It's been like 2.5, almost 3 weeks now, and it's going very slow, like slower than I want, slower than I expected. And I think that is the part that is hardest for me. I was having some issues with my incision, which it opened up, and now it's like a whole situation. We'll just leave it at that because physically you think, okay, I'll recover, I'll bounce back, it'll be fine. But healing does not work like that. It is not linear. It's like one good day followed by two frustrating ones, followed by progress, and then back to square one again. Mentally, it wears on you, but it is what it is. You may start questioning, why am I not further along in this process? Why does this still feel so hard? And why is it taking so long? And then you just add in mom life because it's not like I can just pause everything and focus on healing. I still have a toddler. I still have a house. I still have work. I still have responsibilities and a tiny human who is currently testing every emotional boundary I have. So it's this weird balance of trying to take care of myself while also being needed constantly. But here's the thing. I keep reminding myself, even on the hard days, we need to have a reality check. Even when I'm frustrated, even when I feel like I should be further along, this is just a season. It is not forever. The tantrums, it is a phase. The chaos, it is temporary. The slow healing, it is also temporary. And I think sometimes we all forget to just slow down because when you're in it, it does feel endless. It feels like this is just my life now for the rest of my life, but it's not. This is just a chapter. And honestly, I have been learning a lot in this season. I am learning patience that I didn't know I needed, how to slow down even when I don't want to, and how to give myself a little bit more grace because not everything has to be perfect. Not everything has to be figured out right away. So if you're also in this season where things feel messy, slow, frustrating, or just like a lot, you're not alone in it. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just in it. And this is just a chapter. Okay, my friends. So that's going to wrap it up for today. We talked about a system that trusted technology a little too quickly and got it wrong. A case that took 15 years but never stopped moving forward for answers. And a reality that's honestly harder to ignore once you see it. That what we're exposed to every single day through products, food, and our environment may be impacting us more than we realize. And I think what ties all of this together is one simple idea. We trust a lot of things without questioning them. We trust that technology is accurate, that products on the shelves are safe, that everyday exposure doesn't really matter until it does. And this episode isn't about fear. It's not about spiraling or trying to change everything overnight. It's just simply about awareness because awareness gives you options. It gives you the ability to pause, question, and make small intentional changes. And on a personal level, if you're in the season that feels slow, frustrating, or overwhelming, whether it's your health, your healing, your kids, or just life in general, I'm right here with you. Some seasons are not about thriving. They're about just getting through. They're about patience. They're about giving yourself grace when things don't move fast as you want them to. And if that's where you are right now, you're not behind. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just in the season, and seasons pass, even the messy, loud, exhausting ones. So thank you again so much for listening today. I know this is a little bit longer of an episode, and I know it was jam-packed with a lot of information very quickly, but I really enjoyed today's episode a lot. I really enjoyed this topic. I really enjoy learning. I love when we can do a learning episode. So let me know what you think. If you like what you hear or if you have thoughts or comments on anything, please let me know. And as always, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. And I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much for stopping in and have a fabulous rest of your day. All right. Okay. Love you. Bye. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The facts are fuzzy. Our stories and opinions are just that, stories and opinions, not meant to be taken as professional advice.